Hello, I'm Jeff Fuller. I am providing today a summary of the meeting that we had on the 22nd of November, where we got together election integrity groups from Northern Virginia counties and I believe Alexandria, but at least a couple smaller jurisdictions, and just a number of volunteers that are in the EI advocacy business to discuss basically a post-election um, review and gain initial insights and identify actions to take and so forth. So I'm going to give you a quick, basically introduction to what was covered there because my attempt to record the meeting failed miserably due to a fat finger error I made early on. So I do have the audio of the meeting and I include a link to the audio here. You could conceivably watch this video and follow along with the audio if you chose. Now the audio wasn't great in some places. We had some fairly poor connections with a number of our speakers. But here we go. Um, I am not going to even come close to covering all of the topics that were raised. I just try to highlight the ones that jumped out at me and that to give you a sense of what we discussed. So let me drive on here. This is basically the flow of this presentation. We were lucky and very pleased to have a representative or representatives from Fairfax, Loudoun, Prince William, and Fauquier counties. And we had a number of other key, what I call election integrity groups or advocates also join us, and some volunteers, some poll watchers and election officers. So the object of the exercise, at least from my perspective that I have been pursuing, is to improve election integrity and transparency, information sharing and collaboration among those conservative / Republican groups that are working those issues. This topic ends up getting complicated if we let it, and part of my goal is to try to get as complicated as necessary, but try to keep it simple. So we intend to achieve greater information sharing and collaboration across our region and throughout Virginia, because many of these problems that we have are basically reside in Richmond. And we want to be able to extend the voice by reaching together and coming together, extend our voice and reach to those that are making decisions in the election integrity business and in politics in general. So we have some ideas that I will run by you at the end. And my intent here, this is part of the business of producing a deliverable from that meeting, in addition to the great information and insight that's captured in the audio. So the ideas that came out of that meeting, we've already put into action. We had a what we call a planning operations and risk management meeting this Saturday. A small group sat around and brainstormed, and I'll touch on that briefly. The first speaker was John LaRoe. I asked him to cover what I think is an extremely important initiative, totally on his part. And he is one of the champions, and I would say heroes of election integrity in Virginia. So he basically has started I believe it's a 501c organization. He had this year for this election in short order, he put together support for 7 counties in Virginia, 3 in Texas, and 1 in Georgia. I think that's astonishing. And he prepared tailored poll watcher reports based on the needs of those county election integrity teams. I would say his assessment and the assessment of those who worked with him was that it was a significant success. They encountered a number of challenges, as you would expect in anything rolling out like this, and documented a number of lessons learned. One lesson learned was that you have to provide more focused training and job aids for poll watchers who might have done poll watching before but will not be used to the idea of the kind of information that they are expected to collect and report, and how that is a flow, especially during early voting, how that is a flow of information from day to day. In addition to the reporting information, John's own analysis of the data that he collected showed a 20% error rate in the poll book check-in data. Now that's down from last year, where I think he said it was 70%, but it's still a fairly astonishing error rate in a system that's supposed to be providing documentation of when the voter voted. And I include here a link to the website, which I encourage you to take a look at. He's got reports in there and information and so forth that is very helpful. Fairfax County was summarized by Christine Brim, and then when she had to leave, Andy Bear picked up the slack. They addressed, first and most encouraging is transparency for both Fairfax and Loudoun County took a 180-degree turn. And I would say in Fairfax, in Prince William County also a improvement to some extent, but we still have challenges there. They were given full access to LNA testing, literally being able to lean over the shoulders of the folks doing the testing, but were asked only not to touch anything. They reported excellent coverage of their election officer and poll watcher requirements. They had, astonishingly, 100% of their chiefs were Republicans. We didn't get to go into that, but I think that's basically flows out of the way the Democrats controlled the allocation of chiefs in previous years. They did use John's poll watching reporting system. They ended up using sort of a scribe to gather the data and report it into his system, sort of a hybrid approach. They found during early voting it was very helpful to have the report at the end of one day being handed off to the poll watcher the next day, and you can see how that would be very helpful. They documented over 500 reports, and now they have a huge amount of election data, not only those reports, but also pictures of the statements of results and the security devices on the different election systems and so forth. Shelley Oberlander gave us the update on Loudoun County. They started off, as I understand it, using SurveyMonkey, but they could not get it to go. Well, it worked, but they couldn't get the users to use it, so it probably wasn't simple and elegant enough. They went back to taking a picture of the hard copy report and emailing it, and then a data entry person entered the data into the system. And they organized the data in their own way to keep track of what was going on. They saw a number of poll book issues that they identified. Shelley raised the issue of that we can't accept the business of ceding early voting to the Democrats. And we really need to rethink our election day focus. And I think I've heard that not only from her, but from a number of national and other leaders. She reported that they had an 80% absentee ballot return rate, which seemed high. And they had a number of cases where election officers and chiefs would allow voters to vote instead of go get your ballot or vote provisional. Prince William County was reported out by Elizabeth Block. She had 90% coverage of poll watchers. 50% of election day poll watcher requirements were met. She focused on key precincts in terms of manning. Because of the challenge that Denny Doherty raised, along with the Republican Party of Virginia, to the election allocation of election officers, they got a ruling from a judge and had approximately 20 new assistant chiefs assigned the week before the election. That happened to include me being on that list, which was quite a thing. They had challenges with scheduling of poll watchers, and right now Elizabeth's seeking to find the best tool that she can use to schedule poll watchers for an election. And she wants to do more election officer and poll watcher training and support. It's useful to note that Prince William County had the 2020 registrar is under indictment for election fraud, and that Elizabeth has still not been able to get a copy of the statement of results from 2020. We experienced in Precinct 612 a 27 vote discrepancy between the statement of results from the scanner versus the poll pad numbers. That ended up going clear up to elect, and elect told the registrar, excuse me, to do a recount, or basically a recount of the votes. Unfortunately, they only counted the ballots and not the actual votes, so we don't know if there was any error in the distribution when compared with the actual ballots from the report of the statement of results. And there were cases of chiefs allowing folks to vote who were in the straight reading of the regulation not allowed to, and a number of other irregularities that will be worked up the tape. For Fauquier County, Laird Taylor started off. He observed an LNA test and noted that there was, he was able to look as close as he wanted to. There was no 6 feet away and hold your breath and that sort of thing. The drive that was tested was the drive that was used in the election, unlike what the astonishing rules we did for Prince William County. Debbie Cloud served on, who is a member of the Republican Committee Executive Committee and has helped organize their EI effort. Debbie served on the Central Precinct and worked on absentee ballots. She noted that the staff thought she was a Dem like them, and that they became quite hostile when leaders from the Republican Party came in, or poll watchers came in. Fauquier is 75% conservative, but most of the election staff are partisan Dems. So they made progress, significant progress, I would say, but they know they've got a long way to go in Fauquier. We also had comments from several of our volunteers and observers that sat in on this. We were encouraged in the end to continue to share information and coordinate our actions as members of a wider election integrity advocacy group. So I asked at the beginning, should we continue with the information and action collaboration? And basically, the consensus I read from the input and the hand waving was yes. I was encouraged by that. So the plan for the planning and risk management approach, I'm calling it planning, operations, and risk management, involves first a top-level risk analysis of the landscape between now and through 2024. That means that we have to identify and analyze threats and vulnerabilities, devise rough solutions, estimate the effectiveness of these, and consider the feasibility of each. For example, if you plan on changing the law, that's not going to happen until 2024. 4, which illustrates the importance of gaining control of the Senate in 2023. And I visualize that this planning will help focus and will be briefed to the committees in Northern Virginia and others who are interested in our analysis. The organization that I visualize is very loose and is focused on leveraging the GOP's election integrity committees of the jurisdictions in Northern Virginia primarily. In addition to those organizations, I'm hoping we can find allies and get support for the functions I've listed here: communications, social media, legal, legislative, analysis, and I know a number of folks are working that, funding for this effort, and recruitment and staff development to get all this done. And then I'm planning on working out a plans, operations, and risk management committee, which we've already in effect formed, and it's already working. So, in closing, the thing that, we see this notion of your vote counts, and I think it illustrates the importance, but also the concern we have. February 2021, 59%, that's 60% of Americans don't have confidence in the honesty of elections. In that same poll, they polled 32 countries, and the U.S. was third to last, beating only Chile and Mexico, with 65% and 68% saying they didn't have confidence in the elections. That's a heck of a note. And an Axios Ipsos poll of February 2021 found that Republican confidence in elections has plummeted from 72% in 2019 to 37% today. So folks can say that there's no problem, but I say there's definitely a problem of perception and confidence in the polls. And we need transparency, and we need general, the public to keep their eye on what's going on and be involved. And that's really the motivation behind this effort. So, go in liberty.